Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. The Andor series is set 5 years before the events of Rogue One, and both seasons are going to show us what took place in those years. But a big question I've seen some fans ask is whether or not we're going to see Jyn Erso in the series. Felicity Jones has expressed her desire to return to the galaxy far, far away numerous times, but since her character dies at the end of Rogue One, any appearance from her would have to take place before. Now, while the Andor series is in theory the perfect place, there is one massive problem. For a Rogue One story to make sense, if she does appear in the show, she cannot by any means meet Cassian. Now, Diego Luna gave us a tiny glimmer of hope the other day when he told Entertainment Weekly that the Andor series explores multiple perspectives of anti-imperial people, not just his titular character. So from a certain point of view, you could interpret this to mean that we might see what Jyn was up to at this point, even though she can't come across Andor himself, and this begs the inevitable question of what Jyn was up to at this point in the timeline. Well, thanks to the Rogue One novelization, the amazing novel Rebel Rising, and a host of other tie-in material, we do have a pretty solid grasp of what Jyn was up to in the events leading up to Rogue One. It's often an untold story, but that's what I'm going to give you guys today. So no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. I'm going to summarize pretty much all of Jyn Erso's life up until 5 BBY. Born at the start of the Clone Wars, Jyn spent her early years on the move with her parents, Lyra and Galen, as they dodged galactic conflict. Her father's enlistment in Imperial scientific research transplanted the whole family to Coruscant, but his crisis of conscience led them to flee Imperial attention, an exit facilitated by Gerrera. And as we see at the start of Rogue One, it was Saw who rescued a young Jyn when she was seemingly abandoned and orphaned on rural Lamu. After that, she became a child soldier in his private war against the Empire. From the ages of 8 to 16, Jyn remained a soldier in Saw Gerrera's roving band of insurgents, a well-known group of rebels originating on Onderon, who fought so dirty that their actions, often very violent and terroristic, were disowned by the core rebel alliance. We see this in Star Wars Rebels especially. The main faction under Mon Mothma did not approve of Saw Gerrera's tactics. As Jyn got older, she convinced Gerrera to let her take part in some of the Partisans' missions. On her first mission, she guarded the airlock as the Partisans boarded an Imperial vessel. When an Imperial approached her, Jyn was reluctant and scared to shoot him. And despite threatening him, she allowed him to attack her before he was able to get to another Partisan. After this, she was embarrassed and ashamed of her failure, and she apologized to Saw. Nonetheless, he reprimanded her for a lack of decisiveness. We're now going to fast forward a little bit. When Jyn was 16, she joined Gerrera, Talent, and Kodo on a mission to Tamsi Prime. They were trying to scout out an old Clone Wars munitions factory that the Empire was using for a future attack. They arrived on the site only to be betrayed by one of their own, Rhys Talent, who also suspected Jyn's true identity and her links to her father. The remaining Partisans fought their way out of the trap and the Empire's planned destruction of the factory, but with the Empire on their tracks, Saw gave Jyn a small blaster and told her to hide until morning. Saw Gerrera dealt with the traitorous Talent, but he suffered enormous injuries. It was a huge crippling setback for the group. Not only this, but Jyn was abandoned on Tamsi Prime. The teenager was once again all by herself. The emotional impact this had on Jyn was devastating, and she nursed feelings of betrayal and bitterness for the two fathers who abandoned her. Realizing that Saw Gerrera was not coming back for her, and that the Imperials would lay waste to Tamsi Prime to eliminate witnesses, Jyn left the bunker to find that Talent's ship was still docked, with her satchel of spare clothes, truncheons, and code replicator. Not knowing the name of the world she was on, Jyn wandered to the spaceport, looking for a passage off-world. Introducing herself using the alias Jyn Dawn, she arranged passage on a freighter ship operated by someone called Akshaya Ponta, in exchange for her services as a mechanic, promising to repair Ponta's broken droid, despite not knowing anything about it. At first, Ponta made Jyn forfeit her blaster, which of course she did reluctantly, knowing that she could always buy a new one, and she was more concerned with leaving the planet. En route, Jyn used her forging skills to help Ponta evade an Imperial ship. Grateful, and in return, Ponta offered to let Jyn Erso stay with her and her family on Skull. Settling in with Ponta, who had a son about Jyn's age, called Hader, Jyn was allowed to sleep in the room previously occupied by Ponta's deceased daughter. Over time, Jyn and Hader established a romantic relationship. They fell in love. But one night when Hader took Jyn to a local restaurant, Jyn recognized Hosad Hosem, one of Gerrera's Twi'lek Partisans. Jyn very quickly made Hader leave with her, but outside the restaurant, Hosem and his men surrounded them. The Partisans were looking for information on Jyn, but Jyn quickly defeated him in hand-to-hand combat and told him to leave her alone and that she was no longer a rebel. After the Empire cracked down on Skull, Jyn was orphaned a third time. She spent a couple of years before 0BBY as a thief and a scavenger until the Empire finally cracked down on her and she was arrested by Imperial Admiral Bethada Roswin. So that is pretty much Jyn Erso's story all the way up until Rogue One in 0BBY. If she does appear, it's going to be a completely separate story to that of Andor. She'd be on her own in the streets, using different aliases. So in my opinion, it's pretty much a 0% chance that we will see her in the Andor series. There's always the possibility in season 2 if they decide to retcon some of this, but I just don't see it happening. It's not her story, this is about Cassian Andor and other rebels at this time. Jyn Erso, in my opinion, is one of the best written characters of the Disney Star Wars era, and who knows, maybe we will see her again someday. John Knoll, who conceived of the story for Rogue One, told Vanity Fair back in 2016 that he imagined Jyn as a protagonist who could be an inspiration for his daughters. Speaking about her own character to Collider, Felicity Jones said, "I approached Jyn very physically. I wanted it to feel like she's been learning how to fight her whole life, and she navigates the universe in such a way that she's ready and prepared to attack whenever she needs to." And speaking of Jyn Erso, we have a new Funko Pop coming for her. We've not had too much Rogue One merch since the film dropped. I'm super excited about the Andor merch that could be coming out, but now we have an updated Funko Pop for Jyn Erso. The sculpt is so much smoother than the ones from 2016, and this is from the Power of the Galaxy series. Really exciting stuff. As for Andor merch, we've only got a t-shirt with the logo on it, and the Lego set that was announced at Star Wars Celebration. We do have a closer look at this thanks to the Lego website. It's a recreation of the scene from the Andor series season 1 called Ambush on Ferrix. Ferrix is a new planet we've not seen before, but the recent Empire magazine exclusive showed us one shot from this scene. We've got Captain Cassian Andor, Stellan Skarsgård's character who's called Luthen Rael, and an unknown character called Cyril Khan. Now when it comes to the Andor series, we do know a lot about the cast, but very little about these new characters. I'm not too sure what Luthen Rael's role is going to be, nor do we know about Adria Arjona's character. She doesn't even have a name yet, but just like the Rogue One characters, I'm sure eventually they're all going to be fan favourites. Super exciting stuff, guys. 44 days until the Andor series drops, and just because Jyn is not going to be there, or likely not to be there, it does not mean we won't see some more familiar faces from Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. In fact, it's pretty much a given. So with that said, guys, share your thoughts in the comments down below of everything we spoke about to do with Jyn. Did you like the character in 2016? Did you learn something in this video about her backstory? And would you like to possibly see her in the Andor show? If you enjoyed today's one, guys, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one. Hey guys, it's me again. So the Rogue One visual guide actually gives us a very useful timeline of events to do with Jyn's life. So just to go over it briefly, she was born in 22 BR1, so before Rogue One, before A New Hope, BBY, whatever you want to call it, and she was born on the planet of Valt. In 19 BBY, Erso's family moved to Coruscant. 2 years later, they escaped to Lamu, which is the planet we see them on at the start of Rogue One. Then in 13 BBY, that's when she's rescued by Saw Gerrera, and 5 years before Rogue One, which is when the Andor series is set, she's on her own, abandoned by Saw, so after the events of Tamsi Prime. And then during Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, she's freed from Wobani by the Rebel Alliance. And of course with Mon Mothma, the Rebel Alliance did a lot of background research into her family, and that was why they deemed her necessary to be rescued. This is a really awesome book. I've drawn from it many times in the past. I highly recommend it in preparation for the Andor show. Anyways guys, just a tidbit. Hope you enjoyed it.